Hi, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of The Big Show with Chris Moe. I am he who has already now previously been mentioned, Chris Moe. It is Sunday, May the 8th, 2016, 1:50 in the Post-Meridian, and I am coming to you from Big Sheaux Studios, a.k.a. the Big Show production compound, a.k.a. the upstairs room here in our home in beautiful Lafayette, Louisiana, the hub city, the heart of Cajun country. Folks, today, of course, is, at least in the United States, I don't know if it's global, but it's Mother's Day. And so hopefully you have spent time with mom. Maybe you're spending time with mom. Maybe you're hearing this 30 years from now and you look back and say, hey, 2016, that was a great that was a great Mother's Day. I don't know, but I just hope that you told your mom you loved her today, you spent some time with her. And if you are a husband, I really hope that you have taken care of your wife for being a mom. If you know, she is a mom, if y'all have kids. Okay, it's getting a little awkward, but I hope the sentiment comes through there despite my awkward bizarreness. Happy Mother's Day. My mom is in Portland, Oregon right now. She is visiting, went traveling with some friends. So, Mom, if you're listening, hi, Mom. Thanks for listening. And she's the only one, by the way, that listens. No, it's not true. There's about 3 other people that listen to The Big Show. And also my wife, my lovely wife. You know, I want to talk about my wife a little bit here. She is a saint. And I put that on Facebook today. And whether or not you are a religious person, it doesn't matter, because the idea of a saint, I think, is universal. My wife puts up with me, for one thing, married me, and did that consciously, right? So she knew what she was doing, which it makes it even better. She wasn't forced. And then secondly, went through tremendous pain in childbirth, but that pales in comparison to the dedication and the love that she has for her children. She is, my wife, Allie. One of the things I fell in love with when it came to her when we first met was the gentle goodness that she has in general, but especially around children, man. It's like we went to a party with some of her coworkers last weekend, and they call her the baby whisperer because she loves babies, but babies love her because they can sense that goodness. They can sense that sweetness and gentleness, and my wife is a wonderful mother. There aren't 2 more blessed children than Ava and Camille to have the mom that they do. So she's awesome, and I am a wimp in comparison. 35 hours of labor for our first daughter, Ava, born in 2005, and took it like a champ. I mean, there's no way. I had a hangnail the other day, and I thought it was slightly infected, was ready to maybe do definitely try to get a saline IV, ready to put myself in the hospital. And then for our youngest daughter, Camille, who is 8, didn't have any time because we didn't know, she was feeling some pains that she wasn't sure if they were actually labor pains, and so we went to bed that night, and then she wakes me up around 12:30 or maybe 12:45 in the morning and says, hey, I think I'm ready. And I said, oh boy, okay. So we got in the car and we sped over. Thankfully, we lived less than 10 minutes away from the hospital where we had our first daughter, and we're going to have our second daughter. And I tell you this, kids, it was not maybe 20 minutes before we got in there and she was ready to go. Did not have time for the epidural, and was heroic. And just 30 minutes afterwards, after Camille was born, she's up walking around. I'm just kind of stunned by the whole experience. But just looking at my wife 30 minutes later, going, how does that happen? How does that work? So, because I can tell you this, had I gone through a similar thing, I would not have been walking around 30 minutes later. I think, guys, there have been studies that I've actually seen an article about recently that say that we handle sickness differently and not as well as women do. Something to do with our, ladies, you can insert whatever you think it has to do with, but we don't handle it the same way. Guys, though, I think will milk the illness, you know what I mean? And generally, I think a woman gets up from childbirth or sickness in general, is like, I gotta keep going, So she is just a wonderful mother, and she is my hero. So I don't know if she's listening to this, but she knows. I told her, but I hope she listens because she'll get to hear this. And so yeah, be sure you love your wife today and love your mom, man, because it's so important. to do that and to let those people know those things. We think they know. It's important to say it. And for my wife, one of her love languages, if you're familiar with that, man, this episode of Dr. Phil brought to you by, one of her love languages is acts of service. So she likes to see love proven through action. So makes it tougher. But, because I'm a word guy, obviously I'm talking here on a podcast, and I'm a writer and an English person. So, we kind of have to adjust our frequencies, as it were. But, yep, she's amazing. So, all right, kids, we have got here, moving on to the geekery that The Big Show with Chris Moe is about, and the comedy. We've got a short episode this week. That's for various reasons. I got to tell you, I went into a funk last week, just a malaise, and I couldn't find anything funny. And I'm sure there was tons of stuff, but I didn't have it, and I couldn't sit down and work on the show. I don't know if it was writer's block. I don't know what it was. And so I don't have a monologue, but I do have a Big Show Top 10. It's the second in the three-part presidential Big Show Top 10 series. I began last week with Top 10 inanimate objects that would be better presidents than the people who are currently running as candidates. This week it will be, again, part 2. I don't want to spoil it right now. So that'll take the place of the monologue, and then we're going to run right into the Geek Peek. Got some interesting stuff there in the Geek Peek, also very brief. And then, of course, the highlight, my review, spoiler-free, of Captain America Civil War. Got to see it Thursday night, and the mini video review, it clocks in right at about nine-ish minutes, is up on YouTube right now, Big Show Video, and that's VIDEAUX. So if you are more of a video person and you don't have time to listen to this, or you're listening to this on YouTube, because I'll have uploaded the episode there, after you listen, or right now, however you want to do it, man, you can go and watch that brief video. I do it as I'm driving because it kills two birds with one stone. Was on the road to visit my in-laws last night. By the way, I don't want to forget that my mom is also awesome, and I should definitely not forget that. I think she is listening too. She is another one of my heroes, because she, of course, gave birth to me, had a C-section for me. So you see, I was causing trouble right from the beginning. I couldn't do anything normally right off the bat. So to go through that, that's love. To be opened up, to give birth to somebody and still love that person. Because a guy, again, if I was opened up, I don't know, it would be tough. I mean, I couldn't imagine not loving my children, but that's got to be something, being opened up. I can't imagine. So my mom is awesome, and she has just been such a great mom over the years. So if she's listening, Mom, I love you. And okay, this Lish is a bit sappy, kids. What is this? Is this? Let me ask my imaginary production staff. Did we make a deal? Did we make a deal with the OWN network? Are we working for Oprah now? No? Okay, I added something in the air. All right, kids, we are going to take a break, and upon our return, we will jump right into this week's Big Show Top 10, Part 2 of our presidential series of Big Show Top 10s. All right, folks, we're back. I hope you are as well. By we, I, of course, mean me, myself, and I, and my imaginary production staff over there. And by the way, Steve, I'm giving him, I decided last week, I thought maybe would be I'd fire him. But I decided to let him, he's here, and he's not going to be able to interrupt me here because it's top 10. So we're not going to have, right? What's that? Yeah. Okay, just stay there, please. For the love of God, don't interrupt the top 10, because it's not the same. When I'm doing the jokes, I can edit that out, but no, please don't. Okay, and hey, no McDonald's in this week's episode, or anybody else who could be a big sponsor. Right? Are you gonna be okay with that? All right. He's a very jittery person, very, very nervous kid. Well, since the last episode of The Big Show with Chris Moe, big news in the world of the most unreal world of all, and that, this is a show about comic books and geek culture and pop culture and all this, but the more unreal world than these fictional worlds is, of course, the political landscape. You couldn't find a more unreal and undesirable world to visit. And in the intervening week since last week's episode, of course, now the only candidate left standing for the Republican Party is Donald Trump. And I don't know if that's surprising or shocking. It's probably a little bit of both. It's definitely frustrating. I'm just at the point where I don't care. And so, you have to ask yourself, you say to yourself, do I even want to comment on this? Do I even want to do any comedy? And I think yes. I think it's definitely an opportunity for comedy, but certainly not for anything else like caring. Now, that sounds like I'm not a good American and I don't care about current events. Not true. It's powerlessness. You can't do anything about these people. And oh my God, really? These are the people that we have. And look, I'm not going to get overly political here because I don't like either one. I don't like either party. I don't like any of the people they've really ever put up since maybe Lincoln. I don't know. I wasn't there for Lincoln. But the point is, it's just frustrating, man, because it's like, who are these people? Why would we think they can run the country? They can't run their own lives. And look what they've already done if they're politicians. And look at Donald. I mean, it's just, anyway, which leads me to deal with it by making fun of it, as is my custom. And that is where these presidential top 10s come in. So this is the second one. Now, last week, as I said, if you didn't hear it, you can go back and listen to it, kids. Top 10 inanimate objects that would make better presidents than the folks who are running. So now there's only two really running left. I mean, I guess Bernie's still hanging in there. He's kind of like, not sure when to let go. But we have, of course, the Don, and then we have Hillary Clinton. So the Don versus the Ton. I don't know. That's stupid. It's all stupid. So, I mean, that's no more stupid than it is. So those are the two cats left. So that's who we're talking about when we talk about anybody or anything better than them to be president. So we're going to jump right in here. Here we go now. This is from the Home Office in Mere, Louisiana. Top 10 real people who would be better as president than anyone currently running. Now, let me be clear here, kids. Yes, these people are real, but that's subjective. All right, when you hear who they are, it's all like, I mean, they kind of, I guess they're real, they exist, but beyond that. Okay, so here we go, kids. From the Home Office in Boston, Louisiana, the top 10 real people who would be better as president than anyone who is currently running. Here we go. Number 10, Britney Spears.
Honestly, I think we should just trust our president in every decision that he makes, and we should just support that, you know, and be faithful.
Sure. Number 9, Gary Busey.
You know the most deadly thing in the water? A shark fart.
Well, of course. Who would even debate that? Number 8, Miss South Carolina.
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so.
Yes, U.S. Americans.
Because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and
Sure.
I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like
The
such
Iraq.
as, and
Search as, yes.
I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S.
Sure.
or should help South Africa.
Of course.
And should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future.
Yes,
for us.
absolutely. Number 7, Paris Hilton.
What is Walmart? It's like they sell wall stuff.
That's beautiful. Number 6, Kim Kardashian.
They weren't going to show my ass crack or my nipples. This is full.
That's lovely. Number 5, her husband, Kanye West.
You know, he's got a God complex because he said if they wrote the Bible again, he would be in it. Duh, yeah, I would be in it. I feel like I'm one of the more important people, in pop
Sure.
culture right now. One of the only people with an opinion.
Yeah. Number 4, Charlie Sheen. And this is Charlie Sheen on drugs from a few years ago.
Can't is the cancer of happen. Can't is the cancer of happen.
Of course it is. You didn't need to repeat it. Number 3, Ben Affleck.
Yeah, I mean, the Superman that kind of and this Batman that
Sure.
Zach wanted to bring to life have this kind of feel and this existential angst.
Yeah, it's
and,
best kind of angst,
pretty,
isn't it?
He's pretty serious and pretty committed to his. And the thing that I that he wouldn't have gone and gotten exercise equipment and
Right.
brought it and had it installed in the Vatican
No.
because, like, you know, you kind of more primitive. Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, you see, you know, just yesterday you saw, you know, you
Yesterday,
see heroes in you know, that is you know the
Number 2, Bill Cosby.
Spanish fly was the thing. Story was if you took a little drop, no, it was on the head of a pin.
That's right.
And
Drop
you put
it in
it
a
in the drink.
Coca-Cola. Don't matter.
It doesn't make it, and the girl would drink it, and hello, America.
Yee. And the number 1 real person who would be better as president than anyone currently running, Mama June.
I wash my tooth 3 times a day.
Oh, dear God. As soon as you're done vomiting after hearing that last one there, be sure that you come back here because we are going to jump right into this week's edition of The Big Sheaux Geek Peek. And I'm back, folks. Okay, Big Sheaux Geek Peek. Of course, the biggest geek news this week is Captain America Civil War. Stay tuned for my in-depth yet spoiler-free review coming up after the Geek Peek. And I do have some I do have some Civil War-related news and Marvel Cinematic news here in the Geek Peek this week as well. Let's start, though, with Star Wars news. Young Han Solo has been officially cast. A young man by the name of Alden Ehrenreich, I don't know, is finalizing a deal with Lucasfilm. He's playing young Han Solo in an upcoming Star Wars film. It'll be called probably Han Solo, a Star Wars story, or I don't know, the Kessel Run. Who the hell knows what it's going to be called? He's 26 years old. He's not that young. And he will take over as Harrison Ford. It will be a film directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. Now, here's the thing, kids. I am vehemently against the idea of recasting any of these people, any of these characters. So don't recast Han Solo. Don't recast Luke Skywalker. Let's be really clear, okay? And Disney has not come out and said this, but I mean, obviously, this is their plan. You don't just go and then cast somebody as a younger Han Solo without the intention to perhaps have that revisited later down the line. So what does that mean? These anthologies are going to go on probably ad infinitum, and I could see a time where the anthologies may actually replace or become the main storylines that Star Wars focuses on. So, you know, I mean, there has been some insider information that has said that Disney is planning to never end the numbered episodes. In other words, we're going to go past this sequel trilogy. We're going to have another trilogy and another trilogy and on and on. I don't know if that's true. That seems to me to be not true. I think that's probably just some speculation. Yeah, Disney is not going to let these characters go, but I don't think they're going to. I really believe it's a self-contained thing. They could go back in time maybe, but I think if they do anything, it's going to be eventually they're going to have to go beyond the Skywalker family and beyond, because that's what these movies have always been about, Skywalkers, right? So I think that we're probably going to see that shift at some point. So look, what does that mean? Bottom line, at some point, it's very possible that we will see the continuing adventures of these characters who were played, I think, can only be played by Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and, of course, Mark Hamill, and the same for the others, except for the droids. I mean, you know, I think those guys obviously are people in suits or, you know, Yoda's a special effect, but the voicing can kind of change, I guess, but it'll never be the same. I know some people are hearing this and going, hey, I'm the old timer, I guess. They think that I'm some old man who doesn't want to let go of the past. Not the case. I just think that, you know, the corporate mentality, this hyper capitalistic look, and I'm not trying to get political, but let's bleed something dry. So to do that, we have got to recast these roles. There's got to be a respect for narrative at some point to where you say, okay, look, you know, and I know they've done it with James Bond and Batman and Superman, but at some point you have to say these actors portrayed these characters in such a way that no one else can ever match it. Let it go. here's a thought: create new characters. I mean, it's not George Lucas's anymore. You can go forward. You don't have to go back. So that's, sure, I'm looking forward to Rogue One, because Rogue One is not having to recast any of the classic roles. And one of the big news stories that I have in this week's Geek Peek that I'm going to tell you about here coming up is the fact that some of the characters that are going to be in Rogue One, allegedly, you don't have to recast, because they're characters who were wearing helmets or masks or what have you. So I don't know, kids. I'm really hesitant about this whole thing. And there's also, now this has been in the works according to fans for years, but now since Disney and since this desire on the part of Disney to recast one of the iconic roles, I am a little skeptical of Disney, because I have a feeling they're going to say, you know what it's time to do? Reboot the original trilogy. Would not surprise me if we see that in about 10 years. Maybe sooner. Hell, I don't know. It could be a lot sooner. This guy is 26 playing the new Han Solo. We might see it before then. Now, would that be suicide for Disney to do that before these new trilogies are finished? This new trilogy? Yes. Could it be that they decide not to continue the trilogy and say, let's reboot it, and then do the Marvel approach where we reboot it because now we own it, and we'll seed the new rebooted trilogy in ways that we can then go forward. They'll fit into our new trilogy we just did, but then we can go with our anthologies, and we can tie in new things, and then we can even go back and reboot the prequels. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. But there are some fans speculating that, and I honestly hope that's not the case. This movie, it's going to be Han Solo, A Star Wars Story. That's a working title. It will be released after Episode 8, which of course comes out in 2017. So in 2018, we'll see that. And there's also a rumor that this guy, this new young Han Solo, is going to be in Rogue One. And I hope that's not true, because Rogue One allegedly takes place just a few weeks before the events of the first Star Wars film. So that would, to me, would be very jarring, and I would really hope they don't do that. But we don't know. Oh, the other rumor is that it's from the site MakingStarWars.com, and they have what they call reliable sources who say that they have seen a newly built Darth Vader costume that is an exact replica of the one used in A New Hope in 1977, and that Darth Vader figures prominently in this movie, which makes sense because he was the one sent by the Emperor to find the plans, the stolen Death Star plans, and that they've got James Earl Jones as a Locke. They've got a new guy playing Darth Vader under the suit, and there are even rumors that we may see Vader without his mask, and so that Hayden Christensen reportedly was involved somehow with that. Now, if you watch the Rogue One trailer, you'll notice what looks like some kind of Bacta tank. You know, if you remember in Empire Strikes Back, Luke was in that tank after he got attacked by the Wampa. Bacta is a material that helps to heal people and in the Star Wars universe. And there's speculation that the person in that tank we see in the Rogue One story is, in fact, Darth Vader, and that this rumor here could be huge spoilers if it's true. I don't know that I buy it. He's having some kind of process done on his limbs, and so the reason that he's in the tank is he has to be put in the tank while they're working on his mechanical limbs. So I don't know, again, kids, how true that is, but it looks like the Emperor is going up there to talk to somebody or check in on somebody who's in that Bacta tank. So we'll see what happens with that. But I'll tell you this, I'm super excited about more Darth Vader, and to see him, allegedly he's going to be in Rogue One fighting rebels. Oh man, that's going to be really awesome. So I'm really looking forward to that. Moving on to DC television news, really bad news here, kids. Supergirl is possibly not going to get a second season, and the newest update on that is that there is very heavy consideration on the part of CBS and the Supergirl production staff to actually move production to Vancouver, Canada from Los Angeles. That way, they will actually be able to have less production money spent. The problem with that would be, as I understand it, is that if they do that, they're going to have to slash the budget in half because they won't be able to afford what they usually could, and there's a chance CBS may not go for that. So it's $3 million to make an episode of Supergirl, and they want to cut that in half. I personally think the stories are more important and staying true to the characters versus special effects, so that doesn't bother me at all. And it was one of the shows, Supergirl, was that the president of CBS, Les Moonves, publicly said he thought would return in the fall, but the show has been absent from the network's announced renewals from last month. So I really hope that we get Supergirl season 2. I love the show, and I think it's such a great show for girls to have a positive role model in Kara Danvers and Supergirl. So I really hope that we see it again. I think if anything, put it on the CW. You got everything else there. Put it on the CW, and that way we don't lose this great show. So, excuse me. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of campaign to get it renewed, and I'll pass that on to you so you can be a part of that if that happens. Let's move into Marvel news now. Marvel movie news specifically. Of course, Captain America Civil War has proved to be, in the few days of release, a box office smash. It just came out Thursday night, my reminder. Over its first weekend in North America, it has already brought in $181.8 million. Now, I'll remind you also that it's been out for 2 weeks overseas. So over there, in other markets, it's made $220 million. The film's worldwide gross right now, again, Thursday night, and it's Sunday, $678.39 million. Now, the last I checked, last week, which would make it over a month release, Batfleck v. Not So Superman was at the 800 million mark, not yet at $1 billion. This movie has only been out for days and is already at 678 million. Kevin Feige is the president of Marvel. Well, he's the guy that's kind of the creative mastermind behind all of this. And, I'm sorry, I skipped the rest of the story. So, this is a huge, huge opening. And it's not even the second week or the full first week of release. Then you're going to have next weekend. School's going to be out pretty soon. You're going to have a lot of people, a lot of kids going. This movie has just a beautiful, like all the Marvel movies, I think it's very rewatchable. And so I think this movie is going to end up being tremendous. I think it might be a record breaker. Will it unseat Titanic? I hope to God so, because really, Titanic, come on. Okay, Kevin Feige, back to him. According to a report, he was asked if there are any characters in these movies that don't get solo movies or haven't had solo movies that he really wants to go forward with, or that Marvel Studios is focusing on. And this was his exact quote. He said, "Of the characters mentioned, I would say certainly the one creatively and emotionally we are most committed to doing is Black Widow." Now that's interesting. I really like Black Widow. Scarlett Johansson would not have been my first pick for playing a Russian. She does a great job with it, but there's something for me that's off about her as Black Widow. I would have wanted somebody European, or there's a softness to her that, I don't know, kind of there should be a little more harshness to Natasha, but that's just me. That's just how my read of her in the comics. I think a Black Widow movie would be great, but I would probably think that you would have to focus on that at some point. From what we know of upcoming movies, you would have to kind of fit that in post Avengers Infinity War, which is in 2018, because there's just no room on the board for it right now with Star Wars alongside Marvel. So Disney, I don't know how they're going to make that happen. I would think, though, before that happens, I think we'll see Black Widow maybe appear in other movies, because as you'll find out, well, I know that's a spoiler, never mind, but I just think she'll be more prevalent, let's put it that way. And then it turns out that the Russo brothers were being interviewed, and they let a name slip, and the name, of course, that they let slip was Carol Danvers. So that, of course, if you don't know, is a very storied character in Marvel history. She has been more recently known as Captain Marvel. There have been a lot of Captain Marvels in Marvel history. She's the most recent, and it's very, very likely now that she will be in Avengers Infinity War, which makes sense because Captain Marvel, for those of you that don't know, she is a cosmic character. So you would want to have somebody with her power level up against Thanos, who we assume is going to be the big bad in that movie. So we'll see what happens there. I think you need her, and I would love kids. This is just speculation. I saw a video the other day on YouTube that speculated that Marvel and Fox may have reached a deal on Fantastic Four. And then somebody apparently who works for Marvel was asked that question, and the person at Marvel said there's something better. It's going to blow your mind. Now, I'm not going to say this is better than the Fantastic Four, although I love this character, and I read a lot of his comics growing up, and I think he's a lot more fun and potential when it comes to movies, because I kind of think that the Fantastic Four has run its course for a while, sadly, with these bad movies. I think the character they need that they don't have over at Marvel Disney right now, who is just instrumental to the story in the comics of the Infinity Gauntlet, is Norrin Radd, a.k.a. the Silver Surfer. And if you don't have him, the story will be it's not supposed to be completely faithful to the comics, but man, he plays a big role in that movie. So could it be that Disney has reached a deal with Fox to just get the Fantastic Four rights back? Because I could see Fox saying, yeah, we're not going to do anything with him. We tried and failed with Fantastic Four 3 times, or twice really, and Fantastic Silver Surfer, we've got they're focusing now on their X-Men stuff. So I could see that maybe Marvel made some kind of deal. Maybe they were able to buy the rights back just to the Silver Surfer, because if you do that, kids, you can bring him in at some point, maybe Infinity War, and then you can set that up for the ultimate battle with Thanos, because you're going to need, the Silver Surfer, one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Comics universe, and you need him. I think you need him. So we'll see what happens with that. Well, kids, we are going to take a break, and when we return, it will be time for this week's, or no, it won't be, because it's not a weekly thing. When we return, it'll be time for my spoiler-free review of Captain America: Civil War.
When Captain America throws his mighty shield, all those who chose to oppose his shield must yield. It is led to a fight, and a duel is due, and the red and the white and the blue will come through when Captain America throws his mighty shield.
Tony Stark makes you feel he's a cool exec with a heart of steel.
And Iron Man, all jets ablaze, he's fight and fight with repulsor rays. Amazing armor,
Iron Man,
a blazing bomber.
All right, folks, we're back. Those, of course, were the themes to the 1960s Captain America and Iron Man series, animated series, or cartoons from those days. And a lot of people criticize them, say that they were they're very crude by today's standards, and they are, but they're also still wonderful. So go and check them out. Most of the stuff is on YouTube. I really love, of course, everybody knows the Spider-Man theme song from that Spider-Man cartoon, but the Cap stuff, the Iron Man stuff, also really good. And what they would do is they took the comic pages themselves and they animated just parts of it. So it's kind of like motion comics, which you see today. But the voice work, some of the voice work in these, which, by the way, I want to plug the latest episode of Iconicast. My friend Michael Kreitzer and my friends Sierra and Al, they just had their latest episode last week, and they talk about this at one point, the voice work in these cartoons, especially Spider-Man. You had some of the Rankin Bass voice actors, like the voice of the whole Rudolph the Reindeer cast, in there. So I think the guy that did the voice of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, if I'm not mistaken, he's the voice of the elf, the dentist elf, whose name I'm forgetting in that. And then I think J. Jonah Jameson is Rudolph's dad. So yeah, go check that out. You can find that. But really good stuff. Those videos are on the YouTubes. Well, let's jump right in. This is a review of Captain America: Civil War, directed by Joe and Anthony Russo, screenplay written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, with a cast we know and love at this point, so I'm not going to go into all of the existing actors who return, but they all do a tremendous job, so let's launch right into it. The good. The performances are fantastic all around. Folks, these are actors who've played these roles now for years, and you would think that there would be some perhaps fatigue, or they're phoning it in, or they're getting whatever it might be. If anything, they've only gotten better each movie, and this to me is the pinnacle. I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to do better with future films, but man, everybody is giving their A game. It's amazing. Evans and Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr. anchor this film as Captain America and Steve Rogers. Captain America and Iron Man, and without them, there's no story. And it is a Captain America movie, but it also very much involves Tony Stark, and as Civil War did, right? So they kind of, if they were adapting Civil War, they needed to do that. They needed to make Tony Stark very important to the storyline. And this is one of the great things you're going to see is that it's all been building up to this. So when you go back and watch the other movies in light of Civil War, you're going to see that none of this is coming out of the blue. It all fits together beautifully. These, I think, may be their best turns in the respective roles. Everyone in this movie gets to shine in the film. You've got newcomers Tom Holland. He is the new Spider-Man and Peter Parker. You've got Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. They both do excellent work. Folks, I have not seen, because I don't watch a lot of non-genre stuff because I'm a nerd and that's what I like, but I didn't know anything about Tom Holland. I didn't know anything about Chadwick Boseman performance-wise. I had heard that they were great. And if I'm not mistaken, Chadwick Boseman either was nominated or won an Academy Award. I don't remember what the film was because, again, I didn't see it. But these guys are amazing. Now, Tom Holland took a little adjusting. He is the youngest Spider-Man we've ever had. He's finally on-screen teenage Spider-Man. And I liked him. I'll talk about Spider-Man a little bit later, some of my hesitance there. But I thought he did a great job, and he's likable, and you care about Peter Parker, and that's essential. Also, Chadwick Boseman, let me make this comparison here. Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther is not unlike, I felt, he's not unlike Leonard Nimoy as Spock, because he brings this nobility and this kindness and this just humanity, which I know Spock was an alien, half human, half Vulcan, but Nimoy had a way of infusing that character with such goodness and such nobility, and you see that here with Chadwick Boseman. He's playing T'Challa, who is the prince of Wakanda, which is a fictional African nation in the Marvel Universe, very important to the Marvel Universe. Basically, for those who don't know, just to give you a little background, Wakanda is it's a part of Africa. It doesn't exist in the Marvel Universe, which is rare, or it doesn't exist in the real world, because usually Marvel doesn't create fictional places as much as DC with Gotham, Metropolis, Star City, Central City, etc. But this place, Wakanda, is more advanced than any other nation on the planet because they have never been invaded in thousands of years. So they are also extremely wealthy as a nation because they are the source of vibranium, which in the Marvel Universe is the second most valuable metal, which would be right after adamantium. And so Cap's shield is made from a blend of those. But in the Marvel Universe, cinematic universe, that can't mention adamantium because they don't have the rights to it, vibranium is even more important. But all of the vibranium in the world comes from Wakanda. It's right there, located only there. And so Wakanda has made its wealth from selling its vibranium. And as a result of that, they have technological advances that have never been impeded by anyone invading them. They pursue scientific research and development. They are a very evolved society in Wakanda. And so you have King T'Chaka and you have Prince T'Challa, and they both are in this movie. And the guy who plays King T'Chaka does a beautiful job. Their story as father and son it draws you right in, and you really feel for both of them. So the performances all around are just phenomenal. I really thought that Black Panther would be kind of like a non-entity for me in this movie because I really care more about Cap and Iron Man, and specifically Cap because he's my favorite Marvel character and this is his movie. But I really felt that I cared, I liked T'Challa. And I never had an affinity for him that much in the comics, so this made me care about him. I can't wait for his solo movie, which comes out, I believe, in 2017 or 2018. Got to talk about the screenplay here. These are the real magicians here. The screenplay and the direction, they beautifully juggle multiple characters and storylines. And we're talking about now, what? This is the 12th Marvel movie, so we're talking about 8 years worth of storylines. And what they've done with this story, kids, is let me use an example here. Unlike Batman v Superman, which, to just give you a brief background, Zack Snyder, the director, quote-unquote director of that movie, loves a story called The Dark Knight Returns. The story of The Dark Knight Returns involves the retirement of all superheroes except Superman, and Batman comes out of retirement, and they've been friends for very long, decades, but now they're forced to fight each other because the government, similar to Civil War, the government has outlawed superheroes, but Batman comes back as a vigilante, and Superman is tasked, because he works for the government, to take Batman down or to bring him to justice. And so what the idea was with Batfleck v Not So Superman, because I've read the synopsis, is that they tried to shoehorn that story into, and that dynamic into, a movie where Superman and Batman have just met. Doesn't work. So it's almost like, hey, people who like The Dark Knight Returns will use that as a draw for this movie. Marvel instead didn't say, oh, people that love Civil War, which is one of their biggest hits in Marvel Comics history, let's use that name and throw that story in here so people will like the movie more. No, they use the heart of the Civil War comic book series to drive forward their own story that began in 2008 with Iron Man and continues now. So again, Marvel just knows how to do it, man. It's just magic that happens over there, because they know how to weave these storylines together, these characters together, and that's the beautiful thing about this movie. The heart of the conflict of the comic book story is here, but the motivation behind it, what leads it there, and the outcome is very different. So that's why I think it really works, and that's why I'm glad they didn't just use Civil War as a way to draw people to come see it. Like I thought with Age of Ultron, they were just trying to maybe draw people to it because of the title Age of Ultron in the comics, but this is not the case here. The special effects, tremendous. I haven't seen a Marvel movie that's disturbed me. I mean, taken me out of the movie. I've never thought, oh, that's CGI, and that's a testimony to the work that's done here. Nothing looks fake. The action scenes, as you would expect. These are the guys, the Russos, directed Civil War. Keep doing that, Winter Soldier. So imagine those action scenes, but imagine them on a new scale. Unbelievable, intense stuff. Just phenomenally done. And when you see the big battle that you've seen clips from in the commercials, oh man, it is so great. It is fun at the same time that it is also tragic, because you don't want to see that. You love these characters, right? And you don't want to see them fighting, but it's done so well. And that brings me to that next point. It's a fun battle. It's exciting. It's tragic. You love them. You don't want to see them fight each other. I know some people are hesitant. I have a friend who doesn't like seeing heroes fight, and I can understand that, but the reason they're fighting is completely organic to the history that we've seen so far, and they don't want to fight either. So it's not like they just decided, hey, let's beat the hell out of each other because that'll bring in viewers. It's not some kind of contrived thing. It makes sense, and no one in this movie, superhero-wise, wants to fight the other, but they kind of have to, because they are divided on this issue, and they have their own personal reasons, and so it's really tragic, and of course, Marvel and comic books in general, superheroes, usually when they first meet, there's a misunderstanding, they might fight, and then they become friends and colleagues later, and we saw that in Avengers, and that's played out logically here, because we saw them kind of misunderstand each other in the first Avengers film. Now we've seen them kind of become pals. I mean, there was still conflict in Age of Ultron between Tony and Steve and some of the other characters. Here, that is brought to its logical conclusion and magnified, right? So now it's a game changer when it happens. And the themes in this movie, as far as commenting on our times, are beautiful. Government oversight, heroic responsibility, and duty. Now, these are the things that probably people are going to talk about a lot. You're going to hear a lot of sound bites. Even political sites and talk shows are going to try to skew this to push their own agenda. Oh, Captain America's a true conservative, and Tony Stark's a stupid liberal, blah, blah, blah. These themes are important. They're universal. How far should the government go? Because the government... depending on where you are on how much government should be involved, has a responsibility to be involved, but to what extent? And government, in my opinion, is only useful if it's serving the people. That's why it's there. So how far does it go, though, to serve the people when you have people in the government serving themselves? So that's the real issue, and this movie gets into that, and that's kind of Cap's stance. That's why I'm on Team Cap, because I agree with him on that. The other thing, though, is... at the same time, when you see what's led to the idea of superhero registration, then the idea of, well, what do we do to monitor? I mean, how do we need to monitor? How do we protect people? Because people are getting hurt and dying as a result of these massive epic conflicts, right? So you see both sides in this, but I think what's more important, and this reminds me a lot of Star Trek, because this is kind of the central theme I've always taken from Star Trek, at least with the original characters. The real themes are loyalty, trust, and honor among friends. That's what this movie's really about. It's about, at what point do you sacrifice your ideals? Do you get off of that hill that you're protecting for the sake of your friends? At what point do you not sacrifice your beliefs and that helps your friends, but maybe it hurts another friend? That is what's at the heart of this, and the loyalty and the friendship and the sense of duty and honor is all wrapped up in this movie, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, these are not dark tragedies like Warner Brothers thinks they have to make, but there's sadness here. I mean, look at Captain America's story. He has two people left in his life in these movies who actually knew him from 70 years ago, and that's Peggy Carter and the Winter Soldier. And Bucky doesn't know himself that well, and so Steve's very lonely, and you can understand his motivation here in as you've seen in the trailers, and I won't spoil it. He wants to help Bucky, and that's very important to this story. So you're going to feel that anguish that these characters are feeling as their world that they've known erodes. Okay, they're just trying to help people and make a difference, and now that's become very complicated, and their relationships that they've had are beginning to break apart, and that's the sad part of it. The movie never feels too long or densely packed. Honestly, rewatched Age of Ultron the other day. Something in there could go like a full half hour. I don't know where, but something in there just feels a little clunky. Not so with this movie. On to the bad. Now, this is the only thing that I could find that's bad. I don't think it's a deal breaker, and maybe it's just me because the audience I saw it with was thrilled. Everybody online seems to be thrilled about this. Spidey's introduction, very enjoyable, very cool. It fits in, but at the same time that I thought it fit in with this movie, and a lot of people have praised it, and I will too, how well all these characters are juggled. At the same time, when we shift to see Spidey brought in, I kind of felt like, okay, who could I be focusing on more right now than Spider-Man? Not that I love Spider-Man. I was a big fan, read a lot of the comics, had kind of a falling out with Spider-Man after Spider-Man 3 and what was happening in the comics at the time, and still goes on. I just kind of left Spider-Man for a time, but I came back to really appreciate and find my old love for the character. But I just kind of, here's how I feel, kids. As I said, this movie is continuing something that began in 2008, and you've had all this build-up, and now we're throwing in a new character who, unlike Black Panther, he's not necessarily a part of the movie. It's kind of like, well, I can tell why he's coming in, because probably Sony and Disney said, hey, we need him to appear in this movie before he appears in his solo movie next year. And I get that. I mean, it's a business, and I understand you got to do that. I just kind of felt, well, we could be doing something else with this time. But it is great, and it honestly doesn't destroy anything in the movie, but to me it stood out as, well, I don't know, and that's probably just me as a narrative, former English teacher and writer going, well, this is just kind of, you can tell it's servicing something other than the plot. But all Marvel movies, to be fair, have done that. They have introduced something else, and I mean, Avengers Age of Ultron especially, you see the stuff with the Infinity Stones is kind of, and the Thor going on his vision quest and all this kind of just thrown into that movie as well. So, I see both sides of it. This, I put it as bad just because it's a minor thing, so I didn't want to put it under good, but it isn't a deal breaker, and it's not horrible at all. Finally, ugly. The only ugly thing about this movie, Captain America Civil War, is having to wait 2 more years to see what in the hell happens next. Because here's what I struggled with when I went to see this movie. When I read, I brushed up on my Marvel knowledge when it came to the movies that are coming out. We're going to have Black Panther in November. Then next year, we're going to have Spider-Man. We are, I think, also next year going to get Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And we are not going to see what happens at the the follow-up to this film until 2018. Kids, that's forever, man. And, usually, look at the way we've had this go since 2008. We had Iron Man and Hulk, right? But Hulk kind of didn't do that well, so they didn't really continue up with the Hulk until Avengers. We had Iron Man, we had Hulk, then we had Iron Man 2, Thor, Cap, Avengers. So you always kind of rolled forward with, and then you went back and you repeated that cycle. So then you had Iron Man 3, then you had Thor 2, and you had Cap 2. And you were finding out what was going on with these characters along the way. That's not the case here, because the next movie probably won't reference any of this, and that's Doctor Strange. Not probably going to be referenced other than Tony Stark being in there. We know he's going to be in Spider-Man Homecoming in 2017, but that's still a ways off. So we've got to wait till 2018 to see what happens. And when you see the end of this movie, the feeling of, oh my God, where is this going to go is just really frustrating, but in a good way. So that's the only ugly thing. So you're going to have to hang on for the ride. And if I was Marvel, I would be looking at a way to mitigate the frustration that fans are going to have. Maybe try to throw us some bones somehow, maybe outside of the movies. I don't know how they could do that, but I would try to do that. Or maybe keep it this way, because they know it's only going to build interest more for Avengers Infinity War, which comes out again in 2 years. So I give this the highest possible rating, an A+. Is it my favorite Marvel movie? I have to see it more than once. I had, sadly, some obnoxious jackasses that were sitting in front of me who were extremely distracting during the movie. And so I've got to see it again without that distraction. Certainly, The Winter Soldier is my favorite Marvel movie. Whether this unseats it, I don't know. But certainly right now, I would say it's right neck and neck. So, kids, go and see Captain America Civil War. You will not regret it. Take Mom. Mom's going to love it. And that's the other thing about this movie I want to mention. In closing, you would think if you're not a fan of these movies, you've never seen them, man, I got to go watch 12 movies or whatever to see it. No. This movie gives you everything you need to know to enjoy this story and care about these characters. And I thought, man, how is that possible with all of these characters, plus the new ones, because you even have Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. He's great, by the way. Other thing I should mention, the humor in this movie. There is humor. It's not all serious and dramatic and sad. It's a beautiful mix, and there's a lot of humor, just laugh-out-loud scenes. I really can't believe that they were able to pull this off where anybody can go see this movie and enjoy it and understand what's going on. What a testimony to the writers, the directors, the producers, all the guys at Marvel Studios and Disney. I mean, this is the way to succeed right here, and they are doing it. Go see this film. You will enjoy the hell out of it, and it is well worth your time. Even if you are hesitant because you've never seen these movies or just a few, don't feel like you got to rewatch hours of movies. You can go see this, and you're going to really enjoy it. We're going to take a break, kids. When we get back, it will be time to wrap up this week's episode of The Big Show with Chris Moe.
Superheroes are modern-day mythology. Well, so what? Just how do Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man operate in the way of Heracles, Vishnu, or Odin? And why is that important? Tune into Iconicast and join 3 school teachers and lifelong geeks as we research, review, and discuss the iconic influence these characters have on our culture. Subscribe on iTunes or sign up for the notifications at iconicastpodcast.com. That's iconicastpodcast.com. Stay iconic.
All right, folks, there are my friends over at Iconicast. They had a great episode their last episode setting up Civil War. They discussed the previous Captain America movies and what they were looking forward to. Go check it out. Great show. Check out all their episodes while you're there. And there are links to other great things that they do as well. Folks, I want to thank my Big Show underwriters, who I don't think I thank enough. These are the people who made donations to help me get here, to get the equipment. And, I love doing this Show. And if I could do it full time, and that's the dream, to do this and make money and be able to, you know, actually make money from the Big Show to where it can be one of the things I do, because I love it so much. You know, I'm doing what I love here, so it's fun. That would be great. And these folks invested. They took a chance, and you know, these aren't easy times. They took a chance and made an investment in me. I want to thank all of them. They know who they are. Most, if not all of them, did not want to be named, and that's why I never named them, because they're very modest. They didn't do it for recognition. They did it to help me, and I want to thank them. I also want to thank all my supporters. You know, if you never gave a cent to this show, you are still a supporter by your encouragement, and I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Michael Kreitzer, who, you know, I have to say this, another Oprah moment here, but Michael, when I was at a low point with this show, thinking nobody's listening, and maybe I made a mistake in doing this, pursuing it, you know, came out and told me, not knowing that I was feeling that way, but just really encouraged me, and I want to thank Michael for that, and his constant support of the Big Show. Thank you so much, Michael. And he's a great guy, so go check out Iconicast. All the links are in the show notes as well for that. And, you know, the best way you can support the Big Show right now, it has nothing to do with money. It's just your finger. All you have to do, and your hand. You need your whole hand, probably. I don't know, unless you just navigate. I don't know. Maybe it is your finger if you have a laptop or you're on a device. Just share the Big Show with Chris Moe with people you know. That's easy. Just share it. Here's a link. This is a show I listen to. This guy, you know, he does a podcast, and about, you know, 10 minutes of an hour of it is good. But check it out. And so please help that process. Help it to become something that can have a bright future. And that's really going to be the heart of it, is having a bigger audience, right? So please do that. You know, it doesn't take a lot of time. It's completely free. And if somebody says, hey, why'd you recommend that? Just say, hey, if you didn't like it, don't listen to it again. Also want to point you to Big Show Video. I'm doing a lot more video now, and more will be coming. Last night, I recorded my mini review. It's about 9 minutes video review of Civil War. I talked about some of the things I did here, but not to the same extent. You can find that on Big Show Video. Just head on over to YouTube and search for Big Show Video, VIDEAUX, and you'll find that there. That's the official YouTube channel of The Big Show with Chris Moe, and some other videos. Please check those out. Please subscribe. Please share those videos. That would be awesome as well. As for how you can get in touch with me to give me feedback, which I would also really love to get, that's coming up right after I sign off. You will hear all of my social media contact information conveniently listed for you there. And of course, it's also in the show notes. We can just hover and click right on it. It takes you to those various sites. Thanks so much for listening. Be sure you take care of your mom and treat her right. Have a great rest of the weekend. I'll be back next week with another episode of The Big Show with Chris Moe. Until then, remember to leave the places you go and the people you meet better than they were when you found them. It's Chris here. There is a veritable cornucopia, dare I say, a plethora of ways that you can get in touch with me through that newfangled social media. Facebook.com/The Big Show. Remember, that's SHEAUX. At Big Show on Twitter. Big Show Video on YouTube. That's VIDEAUX. At Big Show on Instagram. And